Welcome back to the 750. I am your RJ Ochoa. He is your 7'5", two-time Super Bowl champion, college football Hall of Famer, and the guy who correctly predicted Dustin Johnson to win the 84th edition of the Masters, the one and only Tony Casillas. TC, what up?
I'm doing great, brother. Yeah, I did. I think along with maybe you, I think you put him in your top three. But hey, I'm happy for him. It was great to see him emotionally. Just when he won the Masters, couldn't talk, and that's the side you never see in him. But I'm happy for him, man. I really am. It was great to watch the Masters. It's kind of an odd part of the year, but nevertheless, congrats to Big DJ.
It was awesome. Don't get me wrong, I'm always rooting for DJ. I was rooting for certain guys. I was also really rooting for Abraham Answer, who was in the final grouping with DJ on Sunday. It was really cool. He's a really great story. He's always been really cool to me. And so, a little bit of a bummer, his final round. But, when you're playing in the Masters for the first time and you're in the final pairing with somebody like Dustin Johnson, those things, they get to you. Tony, we're actually getting this episode up a little bit later than usual, but for a very good reason. You were doing some great work early on Tuesday morning, Tuesday afternoon. Tell us about it. You were hanging out with Charles Haley, Darren Woodson, a fellow podcaster. What were you guys getting into with the Thanksgiving holiday coming around?
Well, before I get into that, I wanted to mention something about the Masters. First time
Okay.
I've seen the greatest of all time have a 10 on one hole, and
That's true.
still shoot 39 be Tiger Woods. So I think we can all relate to a 10. But to your point about the Thanksgiving with the Salvation Army, was a great day. I think, as everyone knows, RJ, is that this is just a uneventful time in our history. And one of the things that really is affected with COVID is people losing their jobs and not having the money to buy Thanksgiving dinner. So I was part of a great volunteer day this morning. It was myself, Darren Woodson, Charles Haley, George Teague, and then really in compassion, Charlotte Jones Anderson. She is as you know, she's part of the advertising genius of the Cowboys and marketing. And so what a great way to celebrate Thanksgiving. I will say this because it's bad. There's so many families. They quadruple the amount of donations they do every year, and which is sad to consider our climate we live in. But it was great that Thanksgiving, what the Salvation Army does, and so it's great to be back a part of it with my old teammates. Anytime you're able to do something to volunteer, but we gave out, we loaded up grocery baskets and loaded probably, I would say, about 150 cars. We pull up in this little drive-through because of social distancing. And man, it made me feel good. It made me feel that like a lot of people are going to be able to have Thanksgiving dinner. But as you know, and everyone knows, it's a big part of Dallas Cowboys tradition with the Red Kettle Thanksgiving Day celebration and entertainment. So it's just great to be part of it, man. I just hope this crazy COVID-19 gets resolved soon, because I hate to see a lot of people do without Thanksgiving dinner and essentially do without food. So it was a good day, brother.
No, well, kind of monitoring you out there with some reporters that were out there kind of chronicling your journey. You shared some photos. Woody shared some photos. So you can check out Tony's Instagram. You can also, he's always posting like stories of himself on his Peloton and stuff. I don't know if you saw this, Tony, while you were out there. Twitter unveiled a stories feature. So now you got to update your Instagram story, your Twitter story. It's just never ending work for a busy guy like you.
I struggle in that area. You're the one that's a master, my man. I mean, if anyone wants to follow someone on Twitter, especially when it comes to content with the Cowboys, just any content, you're the man. I mean, you got it down. But that's just another thing that I got to navigate through. And look, the sad part about it is I'm not doing our Zoom broadcast on my computer, but when you look on your phone and at the end of the day, it shows how much time you spend on your phone.
Right.
That is pretty rude. That's the bit of reality as far as you being on it. But hey, that's how we do business. That's how we connect. So be it.
So I agree. I never look at that data just because I don't want to know. But so the Dallas Cowboys were on bye last week, Tony. Obviously they will play on Thanksgiving next week. It's amazing that the Thanksgiving is that close. Today, I just wanted to look at the remaining schedules for the NFC East. Right now, the Philadelphia Eagles hold the lead in the NFC East with their 3 wins. I don't know if you know this, Tony. If you added up all of the wins that all 4 NFC East teams have, it's 10 wins. And that is fewer than the week that we are on. We're in week 11, and the NFC
That
East
would be
combined
that'd be 2
has,
hands. Think
yeah.
about that.
And the only reason the NFC East even picked up a win last week was because the Giants and Eagles played one another. Shout out to Jason Garrett getting the dub. But the Cowboys, Tony, are in the race both for a top 3 pick and for their division. And so I know you know this. You run into people who want them to tank, and you also run into people who want them to play well. There's a mix of both sides with Cowboys fans all over the world. So who do you want to start with? We'll do Dallas last. Do you want to start with Philly, New York, or Washington? I'll let you pick first.
We might as well talk. Let's go with Philly first.
Okay, so the Philadelphia Eagles obviously are 3-5-1 thanks to their loss to the New York Giants, and they have a road contest against the Cleveland Browns this week against your boy Baker Mayfield. Shout out to the Sooners. Who wins that game? We're gonna go through each one of these and just kind of pick wins and losses.
I don't know. I think that when you look at Cleveland, I love Baker Mayfield. I love his commercials more than the way he plays quarterback.
Lulu has live sports, baby.
Yeah, shout out to his marketing guy, whoever has booked his agent, whoever booked those commercials. It's genius. On the road, if I'm going to pick one team, I'm going to have to go with Cleveland because, I think that Philadelphia, Carson Wentz he is validating why a lot of people didn't think he should got paid the money.
Right.
And they're just in shambles right now. And they're on the road. I think Philadelphia is in the same category as the 3 other teams in the NFC East. Who's going to show up, So I'm going to go with the Eagles to lose that game on the road.
See, I agree with you. I've already picked Cleveland in the places I do picks. You can listen to the SB Nation NFL show to hear those picks. But I see, like, Philly is in the most interesting spot, I think, of all 4 teams because I know they've had their fair share of injuries, but they have what should be the best quarterback left standing now that Dak Prescott's gone and has been gone for a while. But that's just not the case. So I agree with you. They're going to lose this game. Let's put them at 3-6-1. And then, Tony, it is just a murderer's row for them. So the Cowboys will play next Thursday on Thanksgiving. And so a few days after that, on Monday Night Football, the Eagles will host the Seattle Seahawks. And I know the Seahawks are coming off of a loss themselves, 2 losses in a row, actually, to Buffalo and to the Rams. But I think we both think that the Seahawks should take care of the Eagles rather easily. Is that correct?
I think so. I mean, the Eagles, Seattle, that's just it's an anomaly. You saw Russell Wilson throw 3 interceptions, and it's not even going to be close.
Right. Okay, so that puts them at 3-7-1, and then their prize after that is they have to head on over to Lambeau Field and take on the Green Bay Packers. Again, if not, there's a case to be made that the Packers are the best team in the NFC right now. So I don't know. The Eagles aren't winning that unless you're going to shock me and pick the Eagles over the Packers.
No, we're just going to go with just reality. So no, there's the Packers.
Okay.
I mean, we know crazy things that happen in the National Football League, but I'm not going to pick them to beat the Packers.
Now, to be fair, the Eagles did win at Lambeau. I believe it was a Thursday night football game last year, but that was a very different set of circumstances. That's not going to happen here. That puts them at 3-8-1. After that, Tony, they host the New Orleans Saints. Now, Drew Brees' injury has changed the reality of New Orleans' future a bit. Well, not a bit, a long bit, but with regards to the Eagles, I think a bit. I don't think the Eagles can beat the Jameis Winston-led Saints. I don't know if you agree.
Yeah, I think Jameis Winston. I mean, we saw how bad he played last year. I mean, he threw the ball, hit 50 touchdowns. We had 50 interceptions, but yeah, I just think he's in a better system with Sean Payton. So, yeah, I don't think the Eagles won that game either.
Okay, so that puts them at 3-9-1. And again, their prize for getting through these 3 games is they have to travel across the country to visit the Arizona Cardinals, one of the hottest teams in the NFC. Yeah. They'll play on Thursday Night Football this week. Again, another loss, you would agree.
Yeah, I love your tweet about DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah.
You trading DeAndre Hopkins or question mark. I mean, that's O'Brien. When you think about that, Bill O'Brien deserves to get his ass fired. But to your point, they don't beat Arizona on the road.
Right. I thought I didn't tweet this, but I said it on a different podcast. Like, I mean, I don't know which Bill was the biggest loser in that game, the Buffalo Bills or O'Brien. But you know, it is what it is. So that's 3-11-1. And again, we're not like, all of this is really fair and really practical and really possible. But after that, they visit the Dallas Cowboys, and we're speculating that they would be 3-11-1. I will give them that win. I will I will give them the game against the Cowboys at the very least.
Playing for a chance to win the NFC East? I don't know. I think the Giants probably look more legit now.
But who wins that game? Eagles, Cowboys?
I don't know. It depends on who the quarterback is. Depends on how bad the Cowboys are at that point. I'm going to say they lose on the road to the Cowboys. I mean, I don't know. I mean, all right, I'll just go ahead and give them a win. Just so we can just profess that we're not a bunch of homers doing, blogging the 750 and blogging the boys. So, I mean, that's a toss-up.
No, I agree. It's a true toss-up in every sense.
I'll give them they'll beat the Cowboys on the road. I'll give them that.
Okay, so that puts them at 4-11-1. They finished their season the way it began against the Washington football team. Although this game's in Philadelphia, I'll take Washington in that game. Would you? I mean, again, a kind of a toss-up, obviously, similar thing. But I mean, my point is, I think they split those last two between Dallas and Washington. Whichever way it goes,
I think so because, look, I think as you mentioned earlier about Carson Wentz being the best quarterback in NFC East, maybe if that guy does show up and, they have injuries, and I think defensively they can play good enough to win. Just really their offense is just, again, have they had injuries and just hadn't had good quarterback play? I mean, they could catch lightning in the bottle. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, to be able to have five, we're talking about 5 or 6 wins. We're talking about 6 and 10. Okay, and to think that we're talking about that is nuts.
Okay, so let's give them a loss. So that would put them at 4-11-1, I think. I think I lost track. Maybe 5, whatever.
That adds up to 16. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we're giving them one more win, and they have 3 right now, so they would finish 4-11-1. So let's go to Washington. We just did Philly this week. Tony, the Washington football team is 2-7. They host the Cincinnati Bengals. Joe Burrow lost last week in Pittsburgh. But that's the undefeated Steelers. I think the Bengals will win. I don't know if you agree or not.
Yeah, and I believe Alex Smith is going to be starting this game against Cincinnati.
Just like he did last week, yeah.
Yeah, and to your point about Joe Burrow, I mean, this dude is legit. I mean, he's a legit player. I mean, the dude can ball. And Cincinnati is playing relatively well. But the one thing I'm going to give Washington is they can rush the passer. But saying that, I'm going to go Cincinnati.
Okay. So Washington,
I'm eventually going to get there.
Right. So Washington will then be bringing a 2-8 record to AT&T Stadium on Thanksgiving Day, when the Cowboys are wearing their color rush uniforms, when the red kettles are out, when the halftime show that Charlotte Jones Anderson puts together happens, and it's a lot of fun. I think they beat the Cowboys. I mean, Washington beat the tails off the Cowboys a month ago. There's no logical reason to pick the Cowboys right now. I'm sure you agree.
Yeah, I agree. Just because, as I mentioned, when they play Cincinnati, they're gonna have to contend with that passer. So I'll give Washington the win on the road.
So they're at 3-8 at this point. They do get a little bit of a mini bye because they're playing on Thanksgiving, so a little bit longer time. But that won't mean anything because they go to Pittsburgh the week after they play the Cowboys, which is a loss. If you pick the Washington football team over the Steelers, I might just leave right now.
No. Well, okay. Let's see. So the Steelers are 8-0, right?
They are currently 8-0.
8-0.
9-0.
So
they're 9-0.
I'm sorry. So then 10-11. So that will be their 11th game of the season?
No, that would be their 12th game because they'll play this week and then next week.
Well, okay, so they probably locked everything up, I guess, with this crazy COVID. I was trying to figure a reason why the Pittsburgh Steelers wouldn't win if they didn't play Ben Roethlisberger. They didn't play some of the front. But I'm going to go ahead and say they don't beat Pittsburgh anyway. So
Right.
they lose that game.
I also just remembered and just realized looking at things here that Pittsburgh also plays on Thanksgiving, but they play the night game. So they will have the same amount of rest and relaxation, whatever you want to call it, as Washington will.
It doesn't matter. No, they're not going to beat Pittsburgh.
Right, I agree. So we've got Washington at 3-8 at this point. After Pittsburgh, they travel again. I don't put a lot. Actually, I'll ask you. What is traveling across the country a big deal in your mind? Like when you were playing, was it like a really big factor?
Yeah, I think it is. And
okay.
if you're a sound team and you're able to, channel the energy because it's a short week. The way I always liked about it, you play 3 games in 10 days, but then you get time off after that. So it's light at the end of the tunnel, if you will. So if you're good, you're good. But if you're a bad team and have to travel, I can creep in with fatigue.
Well, so they will be, we're saying 3-8 because they'll lose to Cincy, beat Dallas, lose to Pittsburgh. They have to travel across the country to play the San Francisco 49ers. I know San Francisco is down right now, but they're just so much better coached. And I think they still have more talent. I think that might be close, but I think Frisco probably edges them out ultimately. Like maybe it's a oh my gosh, Washington might win type game. And there is a bit of a revenge factor, I suppose, for Alex Smith getting to play San Francisco, the team that drafted him with Mike McCarthy, incidentally, 15 years ago. But I don't know. Are you going to take Washington over Frisco?
I don't know. I think that's kind of a toss-up for me too, because San Francisco, they've lost a ton of people to injuries. Jimmy Garoppolo is out. They're going with second
Nick Mullins.
Yeah. So, and then I really the Alex Smith kind of the quarterback intrigues me. I know there's a horrific injury last year. What happens is this guy
2 years ago,
or 3 years ago, 2 years ago?
Yeah, 2 years ago.
2 years ago.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it seems like a
all time stands still anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, and regardless, the injury is horrific. It took him a long time to get back where he is, and maybe he can come back to some of that true form that he had. But I just think San Francisco has their own issues. So, but if I'm gonna have to pick a team to lose or win, I think I'll give Washington the edge in that game. Call me crazy, but if that's maybe when they get to that the period of time that maybe Alex Smith will be able to show some promise of quarterback. I just don't know.
Well, I'll circle back to this game because after that they play Seattle. They're going to lose that game, right?
That game. Yeah.
And then so that is week 15 that they play Seattle. We already said in week 17 we gave them the win over Philly. So let's give them that win. In week 16, the penultimate week of the regular season, they host the Carolina Panthers. And that game I could see, that's the Ron Rivera game, right? Like, because that's the team that fired Rivera. We're rallying around the head coach. Yeah. And so my point is, if we give them the week 17 win in Philly, which we already did, all they have to do is win one of those games against the 49ers or against the Panthers, and that puts them in the driver's seat because that gives them 5 wins? Yeah, that gives them 5 wins. And so that's I think Washington's the favorite to win the NFC East right now is my point.
Yeah, and what the Giants are doing, I just it's they won last week. They beat the Eagles, and it's so bottled up with just this really bad football. I mean, we're talking about not even a team getting sniffing 500. I mean, think about that. Think about that. But, the point about the Carolina game, I think I like Ron Rivera. That's the thing I do like about Washington. They have their coach. He's a tremendous coach and gone through, having the battle cancer and everything. But I think Carolina, Matt Rule's done a tremendous job there also.
Agreed.
I'm going to have to go with Carolina winning on the road.
But you thought they would beat San Francisco. And that's what I'm saying. I think they'll get one of those 2 games.
It's kind of like split hairs,
So I think because they'll beat the Cowboys on Thanksgiving. We said they would beat the Eagles in the final week of the regular season. And then as long as they split San Francisco or Carolina, that gets them to 5. And they're probably going to have 5 wins, and that's probably going to be enough. And so you mentioned New York. We will not see the New York Giants play another game until after Thanksgiving, which is strange to think about. But the Giants, Tony, are 3-7. I don't think they're going to win another game between now and the next time they play the Cowboys. I'm going to tell you these all at once. So the Giants, again, 3-7 and are on their bye. They come out the Sunday after Thanksgiving and visit the Cincinnati Bengals. A week later, they visit the Seattle Seahawks. A week later, they host the Arizona Cardinals. A week later, they host the Cleveland Browns. And a week later, in the penultimate week of the regular season, they visit the Baltimore Ravens. I don't think there's a single game there that the Giants are winning. I know the Ravens have played a little poorly lately, but they're still the Ravens. I know the Bengals look a little, whatever, but I like the Bengals better. I mean, do you think the Giants win? Again, these are the 5 teams: Bengals, Seahawks, Cardinals, Browns, Ravens. Can the Giants beat any of those?
I think they can beat the Browns, and I think possibly for the reason, because maybe they have to travel, is Arizona. And I know that they're playing, that Kyler Murray is an amazing quarterback and just electrifying when he moves. But I think out of those 2 games, they have a legitimate shot at winning. Because I think they're offensively for the Giants. When you watch Daniel Jones, last week, they kind of got something. The dude's a lot faster than I thought. So I think that you got to give some props to
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Jason Garrett for, going in the bag of tricks and being a little bit, creative with an offense. But I think they can win those 2 games, maybe possibly Cincinnati. I don't think Seattle, no, they can't do that. But I think there is some games that they can, if they keep it close, if they can, and have some, ball possession, they can keep it close. The bottom line is that some of those explosive teams that we just mentioned, once they get behind, that's the problem. They don't have enough offensive weaponry to catch up.
I do think it should be said. I think Arizona is an interesting option because I don't want to call it a trap game. But so the Cardinals are coming off the big win against Buffalo, as everybody knows. This week, they're on Thursday Night Football against the Seattle Seahawks, obviously a big game for their division. Next week, the Cardinals are in New England. They're not the same Patriots anymore, but it's a big mental block for teams. Got to beat the Patriots. Then a week after that, the week before they travel to take on the Giants, they host the Rams, which is big for their division. So, that's a month of intense football that they're having to play. So I could see them, maybe letting their foot off the gas, whatever you want to call it, and maybe kind of getting caught by, no pun intended, a sleeping giant. And so, that's possible. But I know we're dogging on the Cowboys here. We'll get to them in a second. If the Giants win one of those games, that would put them at 4 wins entering the final week of the regular season. They host the Cowboys in Week 17, and we both probably think they win, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Unfortunately, yes. But then I started thinking about all the teams in the National Football League when you look at the quarterbacks. Alex Smith for Washington, the Washington Football Club. And then you have the Eagles, Carson Wentz and Daniel Jones. Then you got either Andy Dalton or Garrett Gilbert. All of those 4 teams, the best quarterback, we would say, that's not playing that way is Carson Wentz, right?
Right.
And then after that, then you have Daniel Jones and then Alex Smith. So my point is that when I look at those teams, if these guys can start playing, I think the realistic money would be on Carson Wentz, right? So I think it's going to have to all come down to the simple fact: which quarterback can play, which quarterback can win 2 or 3 more games, get to 5 games. That's the magic number in the NFC East.
Wow.
5 games. If I would have told you that for the season starter, you looked at me and said, "Tony, you definitely I hate to use this. This is not funny the way things that happen with concussions. You think these have been hitting the head so many times. If to get in to be able to win the NFC East, you'd have to have 5 wins to say, "Oh, I'm freaking crazy." But man, here we are talking about that.
So I actually think, to kind of spin what your point is, I think the magic number is 2. Not 2 total wins, but the magic number to me is 2. Whichever one of these teams wins 2 division games, that's it. That's all you got to do at this point is win 2, because everyone else is going to lose everything else. You look at Washington, they have 2 division games remaining at Dallas and at Philadelphia. If they win both of those, it's probably their division. You look at Philadelphia, they have 2 division games remaining themselves at Dallas and then Washington. Obviously, if they win those 2, it's probably their division. You look at New York. New York has, I believe, one second here, they have 1 division game remaining. So all they need is one of those division wins, which is the Cowboys game, the only one they have left, and anything else, whether it's the Bengals game or the Cardinals game. And so that's a different way of getting to your magic number, which is 5. I mean, we've already kind of picked some of the Cowboys games here, Tony, but for the sake of doing it, let's do it. The Cowboys are 2-7. They visit the Minnesota Vikings this week. I don't know if you realize this, Tony. The Cowboys have 7 games left. 6 of their remaining opponents have records below 500. I mean, if this team was just any year we've been doing the 7-5-0, any one of those teams we'd be foaming at the mouth right here. You know what I mean? We'd be like saying this is a dream.
You're talking about bad timing.
Right.
This is bad timing for everything.
Right. And just watch
for Dallas.
When we're having this conversation next year, the week before Thanksgiving, hopefully, which isn't the day or a couple of days after the Masters, but the week before Thanksgiving, 2021. Right.
Please.
When we're having this conversation a year from now, I guarantee you that we're going to be looking at the schedule being like, man, it's so hard. You know what I mean? Like if we could only just have what we had last year. And that's just the way it lined up. But anyway, okay, so the Cowboys are 2-7 at Minnesota on Sunday. You will offer your official prediction on the pregame show we do later this week. But generally speaking, Cowboys or Vikings on Sunday?
Vikings.
Right. I agree.
Mike Summer.
Right. Now, we both already picked Washington to beat Dallas on Thanksgiving, so that puts the Cowboys at 2-9. 7 days after that, Tony, the Cowboys will travel to take on the Baltimore Ravens. Des Bryant will be there. He's going to throw it up. You're taking the Baltimore Ravens over the Cowboys.
I'm going to take the Ravens,
Okay, so that puts them at 2-10. Ay caramba. Then they get a week and a half. We'll have another free weekend. You want to do some Christmas shopping, do some yard work, I don't know what, before they travel to take on the Cincinnati Bengals. We've been giving the Bengals a lot of love here. I think they beat the Cowboys too.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, I think that Cincinnati, they're hungrier.
Okay, so that puts them at 2-11. And of the remaining 3 games here, we've already picked 2 by doing the other teams. We had the Cowboys losing to Philly and losing to the New York Giants. So the only game left that we haven't picked is a game we talk about this all the time, but people watching on YouTube, they can see over your right shoulder the photo of you sacking Steve Young. Cowboys-Niners is a great rivalry. It will be a disgusting game when it takes place in a month. Week 15, Cowboys-Niners, Sunday Night Football. Who wins that game?
I got to go with the Cowboys.
Whoa!
I don't know. I'm trying to. There's got to be one game.
Right. Look, I agree. They will get one more.
I think. Yeah. I mean, there's got to be one in there, and part of me says, okay, they play these division games. Maybe it'll mean a lot more to them, and they'll play. I always use the word hungrier or with more passion. But I don't know. I think maybe I don't know. The thing also is hard to speculate and predict because it's a few weeks away. But right now on paper, as we sit here and we do the 7-5-0, I'm going to go with the Cowboys.
So we have
they got 3 wins, don't you think? I mean, I don't know. Maybe
to
not.
the loyal listener, we've kind of jumped around numerically, but we have the Cowboys finishing with about 3 wins. Washington, New York around 5, and Philadelphia at around 4. That would just be amazing, honestly.
Okay, if that goes, if our predictions go the way we picked them to win, 3 wins, what does that give them? What pick does that give them in the draft?
So they currently, at this exact moment, have the 4th overall pick.
4th pick, okay.
And so I would imagine that's a top 5 pick, depending on the way things break out, depending on how bad. I mean, we should hope that New York, if that's the case, we should hope that New York and Washington both get to 4 wins at least to push themselves past the Cowboys. The Jets are obviously a team to watch. The Jaguars are a team to watch. The Chargers have been kind of bad. I think it's possible the Cowboys get into that third pick slot. I think that the Jets and Jaguars have the top 2 kind of pretty firmly right now.
Yeah, that's true.
I think you're talking about 3 or 4. It just depending on the way the cards fall between now and then. But my last question for you, Tony, is we both are – I know you don't want to say your team tank. That's not how you're wired and whatnot. But you realize what the season is and that it would be awesome to have a top draft pick. Again, you yourself with the second overall pick in the draft. So, when you get that high, you can get an awesome player like Tony Casillas. But at what point, if the Cowboys won, would you kind of come back? At what point would they suck you into saying, screw it, let's win the NFC East? Would it be if they won in Minnesota this Sunday? Would it be if they beat the Vikings and Washington next week? How would it be? Would they have to go beat Baltimore? What's that magic number for you to where you would say, okay, you know what, draft position be damned. Let's get wild. Let's get crazy. Let's get some Four Locos and let's have some fun.
Well, we're talking about, timing's everything. When everything, all the other teams, and you look at the remaining teams on the Cowboys record below 500, the teams that we mentioned. Now, when you're the Cowboys, you're looking, okay, well, we got Andy Dalton back.
Right.
We look at our schedule. We looked at the NFC East. We want to make the playoffs. I mean, think about that. Regardless of how bad you are, the silver lining and just an accomplishment would be to win the NFCs. I don't care how bad you are. If you only have 5 wins, 4 wins, if that's what it dictates, then that's what you want to, that's what your ultimate goal is. So if you're Dallas, you go on the road to beat Minnesota and then you beat Washington. That's a 2-game win streak right there. So then at that point, you're like, I'm really just kind of looking at the most, optimistic scenario.
Sure.
For me, that would be something. Now everything starts coming back, other teams start winning. Unfortunately, you get more injuries and you start scaling back and okay, we're just going to empty the toolbox. We're going to play everyone on the roster. And now at the point, it's like, okay, everyone on this team is playing for the job. Okay, then you have the thinking as a player that look, do I want to be here next year? Do I want to go? If you're a player making big money, you already know they're not going to bring me back because it's just what happened. And maybe it was a year you underperformed. So then the manager's got to ask themselves, that question, who are they going to bring back? But I think the optimistic approach is, RJ, is that, hey, if they can go on the road and if they can beat Minnesota, there's 3 wins, then they get Washington, another team, has their own issues. You got 4 wins, and then, but if they win the next 2, they lose the next 2 games, then I think it's just different approach. I think it's like game by game. And then once you get to September, then you're like, okay, this is what we're doing. This is what we have to – then it's not going to be really tanking. They're not going to come out and say we're going to tank. We're just going to try – it will be tanking by decision to scale everyone back and let other people play.
Organic tanking.
Healthy. Yeah. It'll be something that just kind of lets the process happen, just organically.
I will say this, Tony, my last thing here. So the Monday night after Thanksgiving, I don't know what your house is like. I don't know if leftovers from Thanksgiving last that long. Maybe they're all gone by Sunday. But so if you're whoever you are, you're listening, watching, whatever, whatever you're eating for dinner, the Monday night after Thanksgiving, it is legitimately possible that the Dallas Cowboys are in first place in the NFC East. And because, again, I just want to focus on these next 2 weeks, Tony. The Washington football team plays the Bengals this week. We both think the Bengals win that game. The New York Giants are on a bye this week, but the Philadelphia Eagles visit the Cleveland Browns. We both think the Browns win this week. So we've got both the Ohio teams, the AFC North orange teams, winning. Obviously, Dallas can take care of Washington themselves because they play them on Thanksgiving Day. Next week, the Giants themselves play the Bengals, which we both think is kind of a little bit of a toss-up, but that game's in Cincinnati for what it's worth, although the Giants will be coming off of their bye week. But they could certainly well win. And the Eagles play the Seahawks on that Monday Night Football. I'm telling you, it is not the most impossible thing that when Monday Night Football ends, that game in Philadelphia, I think that's in Philadelphia. Yeah, it is in Philadelphia. When that game is over and ESPN goes to SportsCenter with SVP, it is legitimately possible that the Dallas Cowboys, and they have to win their next two games. They have to beat Minnesota, which is very possible. The Vikings on Monday Night Football themselves looked very beatable. They almost lost to the Bears, for goodness sake, and beat Washington. And a lot of that, like, I do think it's worth mentioning, and we'll certainly get into this the rest of the week at the side and here on the shows. I mean, we still haven't totally seen Andy Dalton. You know, like we saw him against the Cardinals, but now we really know that that's an elite team. And then he got hurt against Washington. And so I think the fact that we saw the coaching staff respond really well against Pittsburgh, it's possible. That's all I'm saying. It's possible that the crap works. That's really the only way I can say it at this point.
Well, here's what I'll say about Andy Dalton. And I thought Garrett Gilbert did a tremendous job considering his lack of experience against Steelers and just the opponent they are, especially defensively. I mean, he played really well. But the expectation would be for Andy Dalton to play better than Garrett Gilbert, just considering his resume and his experience. In the event that happens, and I think it can, because you mentioned we have not seen a full body of work Andy Dalton this year. He hadn't really, he's, the first when he came in for Dak. I mean, and he did pretty good, but then the next game was just a nightmare against the Redskins. So, for me, it's like, okay, well, give him an opportunity to work, and against Minnesota, I think he can find those targets. He's got more experience. I mean, really, I think.
No, I agree.
If you look at his resume, and that's why you paid him to come in here, then on paper, Andy Dalton should give Cowboy fans a little bit more faith going against a game against Minnesota. The problem is they're playing the Minnesota Vikings.
The problem is
damn good on defense.
Yeah, and it should be said, Mike Zimmer and Andy Dalton know one another very well from Zimmer's time in Cincinnati, obviously coordinating that defense, went against each other a lot in practice. So, obviously the Cowboys know Zimmer well. Zimmer knows the Cowboys. There's a lot of connections in this game. I feel kind of wonky, Tony, because I think this is possible. I
just felt like we just went through every team in the NFC East schedule, and then we came back to the Cowboys, and we're picking to lose, to win 3 games, and then there's a possibility after Sunday night they have a chance to be, tied for first in the NFC East. If everything happens, mathematically.
That is the way that this season has gone, my friend. Tony, what are you going to tell us something you're going to have for dinner before we talk to you next week that you're really looking forward to? A dinner you're really excited to put together.
As far as Thanksgiving, as far as just
it could be Friday night dinner. It could be going out to dinner. I'm looking for a meal you're excited about.
You know what? We started doing these ordering meals online.
Okay.
It's called what is it? Fresh? I'm trying to think of the name.
Oh, we did that. HelloFresh. This was for anyone listening. This was not an ad. This was just an accident.
I was thinking whether I want to do that or not. But yeah. And so what they do is the dinners come in and they're prepared. The problem is I always look forward to eating them when my wife makes them. When I prepare them, for some reason, I lose things. You know how they got everything measured out, RJ? It's like, you can't screw it up, right?
Yeah.
Really, you can't screw it up. But I have a tendency to screw it up. So I don't know. Last night we had these pork chops, man, with mashed potatoes, and had this little dripping like the sauce. But we got a cast iron skillet. My wife, put it on there, and
Okay.
And I was like, why doesn't my meals taste like yours?
I will say, I don't like pork chops for dinner. I like pork chops a lot for breakfast. So maybe that's a core difference.
I think this is more like a tenderloin, and that's part of me.
Okay.
But nevertheless, I don't know what's on tonight. I think that I really have started. I've really gotten into these pretzels. They're called Dots pretzels. Have you had them before?
I have not. That's a pretty cool little tidbit, though.
And we talk about you and I talk about ranch. How much we love ranch dressing. But anyways, they have this southwestern spice seasoning that goes that's what the pretzels are. They're the Southwest seasoning. Okay, and you dip them in the ranch. It's really good, but. Dude, when you're an empty nester, you'll find out when you actually have kids and everything. You don't have to worry about that stuff. You're just like, okay. And then my wife works. I'm like, and I tell her, honey, I said, I'm going to make you dinner. But, I tried to make something especially if you have something that's really totally green, it's really not that good. You know what I'm saying? You got to throw some carbs in there and some
ranch
substance and fat to it. But I don't know. That's probably I don't know. I'm gonna surprise. I'm gonna go in there and figure it out here in a couple hours, and I'm gonna try not to screw it up. Man.
Well, we'll be rooting for you, Tony. Everybody, thanks for joining us.
I'm getting ready for next week's invasion.
Yeah. This is
invasion.
You're warming up, man. You're warming up. Everybody, make sure to subscribe to the Blogging the Boys podcast feed. Subscribe to the Blogging the Boys YouTube channel. We will see you next week. This was the 750.